to another since Election Day, you're noticing some very troubling things that the current administration is attempting to pull across before they leave. And one of them is they have just declared all-out war on anything that the Trump administration may be wanting to curtail. One of these most symbolic evidences of that came out last week when the administration basically told every division of the executive branch, spend all the money. Like literally, go and spend every dime that you have. Is that good for the country? The Department of Government Efficiency co-lead, Vivek Ramaswamy, is prepared to do some things about this, but he's not showing his hand just yet. Here to discuss all of this is Brandon Arnold, Executive VP at the National Taxpayers Union. Brandon, it's good to see you. I believe I've had you on with me when I've been in for Wilkow before, but it's good to have you back. When you saw that executive branch missive come down, and they literally, I mean, they couldn't be more explicit in what they told their departments, literally spend every dime that you can. Whatever happened to good stewardship, having a little bit in reserve for the next people coming in and making sure that we were covering all the bases?
Yeah, it's very disappointing to see them use taxpayer dollars so recklessly. Though at the same time, it's not entirely surprising when you
not at all surprising.
You look at the track record of this administration, and really, if we're being honest here, we look back to previous administrations. This has been too often the case as administrations are winding down, or even just at the end of the year, this use it or lose it mentality that we see for government bureaucrats. They know that if they don't spend as much of that money as they possibly can, not only do they not get to have fun with it in December, but that means that people may trim their budgets in future years because they have this excess cash on hand. So there's a double incentive there to spend through these budgets as quickly as possible. We've seen it through both Republican and Democratic administrations, and it really needs to stop because it's extremely wasteful.
I have seen, and I noticed very directly, that there are some large ticket items that have money left over. The Infrastructure Act being one of them. The CHIPS Act, I believe, has some money left in it. These are all things that could go towards much more necessary and much more important type of help. What is that money likely to be spent on, given their kind of Wild West cowboy approach?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a lot of accountability. So we're going to see money spent in all sorts of different directions. One of the things that's really frustrating is you look at the state and local recovery funds. These are COVID dollars that are still floating around, not just at the federal government, but remember, we disperse hundreds of billions of dollars to state and local governments to respond to COVID. They were supposed to buy face masks and clean up schools, air ventilation systems, and so forth. Instead, they went out and built pickleball courts and renovated parks and things like that. All sorts of activities that weren't at all related to COVID. There's still money out there. We need to claw that money back. Use that for deficit reduction. Use that for tax reform, for border security, what have you. Unfortunately, those bureaucrats that are entrenched in the state and local governments are sometimes just as feisty and reticent to give back this money as the federal bureaucrats are.
I think a rude awakening is coming, though, because and you saw just a touch of it with the federal spending continuing resolution bill. Elon Musk is taking a laser focus to things, and he's weighing in on them, and he's saying, hey, from a government efficiency standpoint, some of this stuff doesn't even come close to fitting the bill in terms of what we need. He and Vivek are both kind of equally gifted in, shall we say, doing just this, and that is making corporations or organizations at least leaner, meaner, operating better, actually getting more done. When Elon went to Twitter, he fired 75% of the workforce, and by all measure, that company is way more profitable and way more effective now than it was when he took over. What are they up against? You saw in the House debate, Jamie Raskin and others that were saying, who are these unelected people and why do they get to come in here and tell us what to do? Isn't that kind of the point? Isn't that what the voters asked for?
Absolutely. They asked for some disruption. They want to see this business as usual come to an end. Everybody knows there's tremendous amounts of waste and inefficiency in the federal government. Everybody knows there's tons of bureaucrats that sit at home now and watch Netflix or do their online shopping instead of doing the business of the American people. So yeah, we need to trim down the workforce. And what I really like about Ramaswamy and Musk is their tech background. What I think we ought to be able to do is automate a lot of the processes that are currently done by people within the federal government, integrate things like AI tools that will make the government leaner and more efficient. That will allow us to downsize the federal workforce to save a lot of money. And again, to put these resources to better uses, first and foremost, to driving down the national debt, which is at crisis levels right now.
What I find ironic is that the Biden-Harris team continually bragged about job creation and how many jobs they created. If you nixed out all of the federal jobs that they gave jobs to people that were their buddies and their buddies' buddies and their buddies' buddies' buddies, what would their job creation have actually looked like? Were we actually growing jobs in the private sector over the last 4 years?
There might have been some private sector growth, but keep in mind a lot of that was bounce back activity after COVID, when people were laid off in mass and businesses were being forced to shut down. A lot of those people were laid off, and then once things opened up, people came back into the workforce. But keep in mind, we still have an unemployment rate that's over 4%. We still have a labor participation rate, people that are actually volunteering to go into the workforce, that is lower than what it was during the pandemic. Those numbers have not bounced back to where they ought to be. So we do still have huge problems in our labor markets. Yes, we have seen some job creation. Like you said, a lot of that is in the public sector, unfortunately. We have a long way to go to get back to where we were in 2018 and 2019, when the unemployment rate was so low that really put upward pressure on wages, meaning people were making a lot more money. That's what we want to see. Tight labor markets, higher wages, people have more money in their pockets. That's what we need to get back to.
Well, we're going to have to do some innovation to do all of that. We just got reports here in New York today that our visitors numbers were up to 65 million, which is the highest it's been since 2019, just before the pandemic. Having said that, the middle of Manhattan is still almost a dead zone during the day because people are not in the offices, and the businesses that are here are suffering as a result of that. I'm not saying that we need to go back to brick and mortar for everything all the time, but to your point, the more that we incorporate technology, AI, other resources, the more we can create efficiencies in not just government, but the economy and life in general. And what we need to be focused on is, how do we do life better? How do we do it at less of a cost of time and resources? And how do we get a better quality result for it? I think ultimately that should be the aim of what technology is going to be about. I hope that the example that Musk and Vivek showed the rest of the country will be mirrored in the private sector, but we'll have to wait and see. Certainly people that want to be more profitable are going to have to figure that out as they go along. Brandon Arnold, Executive VP at the National Taxpayers Union, thanks for the great work that you do. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it.